Hey, what's up, y'all? So, real quick, I want to go over like two different types of lyric essays. One is the braided essay, and the other is the collage essay. Okay, it's just options for structuring a lyric essay, right? So, a braided essay it's basically like braiding hair, right? And that it means you're weaving multiple threads together to make an essay that works like as a cohesive whole, right? Whereas a collage essay, you can think of it like a quilt, where you're taking different things and putting them together that may be all under in the same theme, right? Like a quilt, and together they tell a story, right? But they're not necessarily woven in that, like, we don't start at one and come back to it here and then come back to it here. We go from one over here to one over here to one over there, right? There's a lot of different quilting rather than braiding, which is different. If you can imagine a patchwork here, that's a collage, whereas braiding is weaving in and out. So if we look at it like the where it actually looks like with a braided essay, so a braided essay would look like this, right? Where you have A and B, and then you write the different sections. You might actually write them all out. You might write like a whole essay for B and a whole essay for A, and then you weave them in. You know, A1, B1, A2, B2, A3, B3, and you can do this with three. You can do it with more. You can do it with three. If you think of it like the way I kind of like to think of it is kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie, right? Where kind of we go in and out of these different storylines. If you think of like Pulp Fiction is like a braided movie, and if we write braided essays, it's a very, very similar thing. Whereas a collage essay, and so this is one of my pieces, and it's you don't need to read it necessarily, but I'm using it as an example because it is a collage essay, right? It's about hickory chickens or morel mushrooms, and so there's I think there's maybe four, three different scenes, right? One as a child, another one a little bit later, and then here's a different scene, and then finally a cooking of the morel scene. So there's a bunch of different types of ways of doing this. Another example of sort of a collage essay. Now, this isn't a traditional collage essay, and some people might argue that it's not actually a collage essay, but I tend to think of it as such, as is Danielle Geller's annotating the first page of the First Navajo English Dictionary, which I just love, is one of my favorite pieces. Sorry, I'm going to close that. But, you know, she's taking different pieces and putting them together, all in their different stories, all under the auspice of what it means to be Navajo, right? Essentially, right? So that's a collage essay, and that's a braided essay. The question is, when do you use them? Why would you use them, right? And that's really up to your style and your taste. For me, I write a lot of collage essays, and they tend to make sense to me, like when I have a lot of little moments around like a particular theme. Maybe it's like not feeling good enough, or maybe it's a theme with a particular traumatic event or anything or something. But I have a lot of little moments where I can think back and like say, okay, I felt this way this time. I felt this way this time. And then if I put them together in a way that makes sense, and what that means I don't know, because it's all different for each piece. But I'll take these little moments and I'll put them together, and then as a whole, they tell a story that we don't overtly say. We don't overtly come out and say, here's the moral to the story that you're supposed to take from this. But all of the pieces, moments together, we illustrate that point, right? And so that's one reason why you might want to do a collage essay. A braided essay would be similar, but maybe different. Maybe you have a little bit more to say on two topics that are, sometimes they're seemingly very related, sometimes they're not related at all, but you want to put them together. Like, I mean, like, you know, I've read braided essays that put like running, a running journey and cancer journey together, right? Or a journey with learning how to cook with domestic violence. Like, there's all of these. There's really limitless ways that you can do it. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to draw parallels between the 2 or 3 stories that you're using, and then in the end it comes together, and you're like, oh, I see how these all relate now. I didn't. You might, and you just kind of slowly get it as the braid works down, but in the end it really comes together. So that's braided essays. That's collage essays. Experiment with them. Try them. I mean, I think they're really, really fun. And as far as like, you know, what I've really been talking about in this class a lot is what does that mean for your life and the reflective processes of your life. For me, I think both of those essays provide a way for you to think about all of the different moments that make up, or how all of these different seemingly disparate moments make up a story that is a part of your story, a part of your identity, and a part of who you are, right? And I think for me, it's interesting to think through that, because then I can think back on, you know, the different moments in my life. So anyways, 2 ways of thinking about your life, 2 ways of writing lyric essays.